Next up, at first glance, it doesn't seem like Jimmy Tingle's a serious politician. That's because at first he was not. Here he is talking about Donald Trump in 2016 when Jimmy Tingle for president was just the name of his one-man show.
He said, Mexicans are coming to America. We're not getting the good Mexicans. We're getting the bad Mexicans. And then he said, I will win the Hispanic vote. He will win the Hispanic vote if he apologizes to the Mexican people in Spanish. Lo siento por mis comentarios estúpidos.
But while Trump still hasn't apologized to the Mexican people in any language, by the way, a lot has changed for Tingle in the past 2 years. He ran for office for real in September. And while he ultimately came up short in the race for the Democratic nomination for lieutenant governor, his campaign was no joke. Ahead of 2 stand-up shows later this month called Why Would a Comedian Run for Office? Jimmy Tingle joins me now with the answer. Nice to see you, Jimmy.
Good to see you, Jim.
So you called me for advice before you decided to run, and you rejected my advice and ran anyway. Do you have any regrets about this whole thing?
Not at all. Nope. Great experience, Jim. And I did it. I believe I did it for the right reasons.
What were the? What does it say? Why would a comedian run for office? Why would a comedian?
We're at the height of an opioid crisis in the state. And during the 1980s, I lost 3 friends to alcohol and drugs. I personally was going downhill in a big way because of those substances. I started calling places for help. Detoxes, rehabs, treatment centers, hospitals. I would get the runaround. There's no beds. There's long lines. Call back next week. You don't have insurance. I called the Cambridge City Hospital. They had a program there, a federally funded program called Cahill 3. I said to the man who answered the phone, I really need help. Without missing a beat, this guy said, you called the right place. I went into that hospital, stayed 7 days through Christmas 1987, got out, moved to New York City. I focused on stand-up comedy and recovery. That's all I did for a year. A year later, I went on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Out of that experience, I took away a couple of things. Number 1, I believe in God. Number 2, I believe in the power of government to change people's lives. Everything I have in my life, and I mean everything, my wife, my son, my career, my education, my relationship with people like yourselves, the ability to come on television and talk, you know, is directly attributable to that man's response when I reached out for help. And I was running for lieutenant governor at the height of the opioid crisis in this state and this country in large measure to hopefully ensure that when anybody in the state of Massachusetts picked up a phone and reached out for help, the answer on the other end always would be, you called the right place.
I could vote for a politician like that. So give me like the most memorable moment of this campaign.
The most memorable moment,
or one that really stuck with you.
Well, as soon as I announced, I got a call from the Globe. All right, like 15. I didn't think. I thought I could get everything together, and then you know. So I get a call from the Globe. Jimmy, are you running for lieutenant governor? I said, well, yes, I am. What are you, nuts?
I thought that was me, actually. It was the Globe?
And he says, you have a great life. My wife is next to me going, you do. You really do. I said, I am. He goes, why are you running? I said, because I've been doing social and political humor for 30 years. I want to take the whole thing to the next level. I just don't want to joke about things. I want to try to actually implement some of the things I've been talking about. He said, can I quote you on that? I said, absolutely. You can quote me. An hour later, I'm in Walgreens, right? And I'm shopping. My mother was 89 at the time. And I'm in the Depends aisle and I'm getting all this stuff, right? I'm in the Depends aisle. My wife, Catherine, calls me and goes, Jimmy, you're not going to believe this. It came out on Boston.com. The article's gone viral. It's in the New York Times, the LA Times, the Wall Street Journal. Boston comedian Jimmy Tingle declares candidacy for lieutenant governor of Massachusetts. I have no campaign manager, no website, no money, no platform, no staff. I said to the cashier, excuse me, could I get one more package of Depends, please? This is serious.
So I wasn't going to discuss national politics with you, but the reason I want to step back and do it for a second, because I didn't know you had hired a new public relations person, but he was on the radio with us today. Listen to what the public relations guy had to say.
Have you guys heard Jimmy Tingle's routine on the wall? Tell him to repeat it.
So out of nowhere, we're talking to Mike Dukakis, and we're talking about nothing to do with anything. And he said, have you heard Jimmy Tingle's routine about the wall? Tell him to repeat it. What's that about?
The wall. Well, the reason Trump was...
Is Dukakis on your payroll, by the
No,
way?
he's not, but I called him for advice as well.
Okay, good. And so what's the wall deal?
Well, the whole thing about the wall is Trump saying, you know, we're going to build a wall. I'm not an expert on immigration, but the country has 4 sides.
It does,
4. If you build a wall across one side of the country, it seems to me people could go around the wall.
Yeah.
But the reality is most people in this country who hear who are here undocumented did not run across the southern border. They did not swim across the Rio Grande. They overstayed work visas and student visas and tourist visas, and they came into the country on planes. And somebody's got to tell the United States government a plane can go over a wall. So what the government really should do is build a dome over the United States and get U.S. Airways to pay for it.
I want you to know Dukakis didn't tell that nearly as well as you did, by the way, so I think his future. So would you give advice? I assume people come up to you now who are contemplating running for the first time for office, which you did.
Yeah.
What do you say to them?
I say go for it. If your heart's in it, that's what I did. I called Mike. I called Deval Patrick. I called
Barney
Tommy
Frank
O'Neill.
was your honorary chair.
Barney
Matt
Frank.
Damon is doing robocalls for you.
Yeah. I called them all. They were behind me, and they said, you know, and I say to people who are thinking about it, go for it, but just try to get your ducks in a row before you announce.
And you did that really well.
Yeah, I announced first, and then had to put together a team. Get a team, get some money, get a website, get your platform together, and then announce. So then, as incoming calls come in, you can, you know, collect money. You can, you know, set up dates. You got a scheduler and all of that.
Do you know that if you actually won, are you aware that you would have had to serve? You're aware of that, right?
That would have been great.
Was that not daunting?
It was a little daunting.
I mean, really?
Yeah.
I mean, you're a comedian. You're an accomplished comedian.
Right.
You're not an accomplished politician.
True. And that was a big reservation. It maybe put it this way, it gave me a lot of pause to think about this really through in a good way, in a very effective way, because I called Dukakis and Deval, and I called all these people. I said, you know, can I do the job? If I get in there, I've never served, can I do the job? They all said, you can absolutely do the job. And I called my friend from the Kennedy School, Tom Senecandro, who was a state rep in Framingham. I said, Tom, you know me. Can I do the job if I get in there? He goes, you can absolutely do the job. I said, are you sure? He goes, Jimmy, do you know who the president is? And let me tell you something about the president. And he was also a big influence on me running.
Donald Trump was?
Yes.
Why?
Because he had people say, how did he win? He had a message that people could understand. 3 words: build the wall, drain the swamp, lock her up, make America great. I had my own 3 words: feed the hungry, house the homeless, heal the sick, welcome the stranger, and fix the tea. Jim, if John F. Kennedy could inspire a generation to go to the moon, we ought to be able to get a train to go to Springfield, commuter rails to New Bedford and Fall River. And Jim and Duke would agree with me on this. We ought to be able to get a train to connect North Station to South Station.
He's going to love that moment. Jimmy Tingle, congratulations for a great one. We really appreciate
holiday.
it. Great Jimmy Tingle. You can catch his fabulous stand-up show. I recently saw it on the Cape. Why Would a Comedian Run for Office? On December 28th in Wellfleet and December 29th at the Cabot Theater in Beverly. For more information, just go to jimmytingle.com.